Winter is coming, and I did too. All over the pissing floor. Such a horrible, sticky mess. Such a long and protracted clean-up operation took place in that office out there this very morning because Sting turned up in AEW. We learned last night that Sting has signed a multi-year contract with AEW, and I really like Sting. But as for last night's Dynamite as a whole, was it the best Dynamite ever? It's certainly in the conversation. I do not smoke the cigarettes in my spare time, but I tell you what, coming out of watching last night's show, I could have smoked an entire packet. Whew! What an episode. But let's try and pull it apart now with all the WTF moments from last night's AEW Dynamite. Winter is coming, and so am I. Intro man, hit the intro, please. But we're kicking things off with a sobering WTF moment because we saw Matthew James Cuthbert Hardy eliminate his biological son, Isaiah Cassidy. And I was thinking, but Matthew James Cuthbert Hardy, what about the cool hand thing you do with Private Party? Does that mean nothing to you, you dick? And we've got to make it a huge WTF moment, don't we? The moment where Big Dick Tony Schiavone, why I'm doing the snake hips, I have no idea. But when Big Dick Tony Schiavone claimed that Wardlow and Miro were the favourites to win that opening battle royal on last night's show because of sheer size, if nothing else. And this is a WTF moment because in that moment we learned that Big Dick Tony Schiavone has never watched professional wrestling before. How will anybody get viscera over the top rope? How can anybody stop the Big Show? We've asked ourselves so many times over the past 20 or so years. Yet Big Dick Tony was saying that on last night's Dynamite. But then again, this is Big Dick Tony we're speaking about, a man who is completely infatuated with the Yeti. He loves a bit of size, does our Big Dick Tony.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
Bah, Gouda did it again.
And it's just a direct quote from Jim Ross that made me lamaho. It made me ruffle. It didn't quite make me pumisimile. That one, aye, but it made me laugh so much I felt compelled to include it in this video of all the WTF moments from last night's Dynamite. Matt Hardy and those giant teeth smiling from ear to ear. It was the emphasis on giant teeth. So unnecessarily aggressive, Jim. And I don't know why it got me, but it did. But I learned some intel into Matt Hardy's giant teeth. I learned that Matt Hardy went for an operation on his giant teeth. And I want you to ask me, Ross, what time did that operation take place? And I'll tell you, it took place at 2:30. Tony Khan likes big sweaty men. Tony Khan likes big sweaty men. Tony Khan, he loves all the beef.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
Bah, Gouda did it again.
So then we saw Le Champion himself, Chris Jericho, go wabow for his own code breaker. Just like that, I could be a professional wrestler. Kazarian blocked that attempted code breaker, and then, in the words of Jim Ross, when that there was happening on our screens, where the hell is it on this bit of paper? Jim Ross said looking for his own version of the code breaker. And who knows, when Kazarian goes for the walls of Jericho, just like that, he might call it the code breaker just to be an utter bastard. But to me, sat here as an utter muggle, just a fan of professional wrestling, that looks like a walls of Jericho, Jim. I don't know what you're talking about. So long-time viewers of this utter bollocks here on the Cultaholic Wrestling YouTube channel will know that I have sometimes moaned about a certain precedent AEW have set in the not-too-distant past. Just like WWE, sometimes they have referees in the back come out to correct an incorrect call made by the referee inside the ring, but then sometimes we see an incorrect call made by the referee inside the ring, and there's no referees come out from the back to correct the incorrectness we have just seen in the ring. But thanks to Jim Ross on last night's Dynamite, we learned why sometimes the referees come out and sometimes they don't come out from the back because, and I quote, "Get away from the donuts, lads, let's roll." That's what he said last night. And I was just thinking, how unprofessional can you be? Put the pissing donuts down and get out there and do your job. Says me, looking like this. I like donuts.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
Bah, Gouda did it again.
So then we learned that Jim Ross believes that when Darby Allin is getting ragdolled like this by Powerhouse Hobbs, that makes Darby Allin look like a Christmas present. And that left me asking one question, everybody. Who at home gets their Christmas presents on Christmas morning and starts doing this with them? Apart from dogs. And of course, if you do that on Christmas morning, please let me know that you do that, because I have so many questions. So then we get to the final fall of that tag team matchup, and I tell you what, if that shoulder is not off the mat, I don't know what is. You could quite literally park a double-decker bus under Ricky Stark's shoulder right there. Albeit a toy one, but still a double-decker bus all the same. Silly cradle neck cover thing. And then I've got to make Dustin Rhodes coming to the aid of Cody Rhodes a huge WTF moment, because I'm sure I've stood here doing the WTF moments for AEW over the not too distant past, and I've made Dustin Rhodes not appearing to save Cody Rhodes on more than one occasion a WTF moment. So last night, Dustin, bucking the trend, it's got to be a WTF moment. It's about time you saved your baby brother, you useless bastard. Winter is coming, and so did I, because then Sting appeared on AEW Dynamite. That VHS there, that is a massive reason as to why I'm stood here right now, watching Sting's battles, Sting stalking the NWO, taking down Hollywood Hogan. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Let's try and forget about WWE putting their own spin on Sting and trying to make him a vigilante with some Asian drum men at WrestleMania 31. What was all that about? I've got no idea. I still love Sting, and it was great to see him last night. And I tell you what, with the entrance with the snow coming down, Tony Schiavone himself, he sounded so emotional. I like to think the commentators had no idea Sting was going to appear on last night's show, and that reaction we heard, it was completely from the heart. Just like the Arthur soundtrack. Tony Schiavone flubbing his lines, just watching Sting do the things with his eyes like Sting only can do. What a lovely, sexual set of eyes Sting has got. He could stare a hole right through you, couldn't he? Of course, it was absolutely incredible, I thought. A fantastic way for Sting to debut, because it was so ambiguous. We can't really read anything from the way Sting debuted, but the way he went around the ring, going from oldest to youngest. He went to Arn, he went to Dustin, he went to Cody, but then he lingered on young Darby Allin. Sting he loves, that young meat. I would love to see Sting in some sort of advisory, not managerial, because I don't want to see Sting cutting so many promos. I don't want to see him working the stick all too often. But Sting getting involved in the spooky and weird and disturbing promos that Darby Allin has been doing ever since AEW began just about. Sting and Darby Allin hanging about in the rafters, having a gin and tonic. That's the sort of content I want. The Dark Father of Darby Allin is Sting, and I'm all here for it. But then again, we don't really know what's to come from Sting. We're going to find out on next week's show, but bloody hell, it's good to see Sting all the same. And when did Hikaru Shida turn heel? That's what I'm asking myself. And of course, I understand that Shida is very scared of Abaddon. Inside Shida's own head, she's trying to convince herself that Abaddon is not a real living dead girl. But I absolutely hated Shida saying, well, this Abaddon, she's just a normal girl, but she's just cosplaying as a zombie. Put that bollocks in the bin. And I'm going there, let's take ourselves all the way back to 1990. Imagine if, right, Roddy Piper on commentary was just saying, wow, that big ginger lad there, he's just got some face paint on. He's not a real dead bloke. Imagine where we would be today. There'd be no Undertaker, would there? This is Pro Wrestling Shida, and whoever wrote that bollocks for Shida, by the way. Living dead people, they are real. So during that main event, we heard one of the commentators say, you don't hold the AEW World title for as long as Jon Moxley has, while being a very stupid boy. But then a couple of minutes later, we see Jon Moxley hit a paradigm shift, but does he go for the cover? Oh no, he does not. We see that silly bollocks there, and I was left asking, what the hell are you doing, John? Instantly proving that line from commentary to be incorrect, because I know that maybe the paradigm shift, it would have been kicked out of, because this is professional wrestling, and that paradigm shift, it did happen quite early, relatively, into the match. But still, John, you never know. It might have been your lucky day. You might have hooked that leg like Jim Ross likes them to be hooked. The shoulders pressed down to the mat really hard. You might have got the 3. I just thought you were really stupid in that particular moment. And of course, I could make the referee's performance in that main event match a huge WTF moment, but we have learned beyond any shadow of any doubt over the past year and a bit that referee's discretion, it goes right over the head of all the rules. You disregard the rules, It's just what the referee on the night, what he or she wants to do. So I've mentioned it now, so don't you dare comment about it down below, right? I can see you going for it. Stop! But then we learned we've got to watch next week's Impact Wrestling to find out all the inner workings, the inside scope behind the screwy finish to that main event match from last night's Dynamite. Presumably, Kenny Omega is going to be on Impact Wrestling, which is another WTF moment, of course, because remember, in a world before AEW existed, there was rumours of Kenny Omega going to Impact Wrestling and how everybody laughed. I laughed too, but now it looks like Kenny Omega is actually going to go to Impact Wrestling, and that's going to look weird. But it does look like we now have an official working relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling, and how Impact Wrestling must be absolutely pissing themselves having AEW and the TV deal they have working with them. They cannot believe their luck, surely. But on a more serious note, of course, more exposure for the professional wrestling business as a whole can only be a good thing for the professional wrestling business. More eyes on AEW and in turn more eyes on Impact Wrestling, and in turn, but on a different sort of direction, more eyes on NWA is more eyes on professional wrestling as a whole, and that can only be a good thing. So good luck to the lads and the lasses in their working relationship. And obviously we're just going to have to sit back and watch this one unfold over the coming weeks and the coming months, but you look at some of the names on the Impact roster and some of the relationships they have with the people on the AEW roster and the invasion storylines we could have going forwards. It just makes your mouth water. So earlier in the night we learned that next week Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer, they're going to be involved in tag team action. But we go through the main event on last night's show, we go through Don Callis' shocking revelation right at the end of last night's show, and then Eddie Kingston, he gets into the commentary position. He takes the commentary microphone headset ting and he says, screw next week, I want Lance Archer now. But then whoever makes the calls on the production side of things was like, Eddie, shut your bloody mouth right now. We're ending the show right now. Bosh, Eddie was cut off. He was cooked right at the end of the show. Where that was going, I've got no idea. Why did that need to be done? If you know, let me know. But that is it for all the WTF moments from last night's Winter Is Coming and So Am I episode of AEW Dynamite. I thought it was great. The main event left a bit of a sour taste, but I guess in the bigger picture, good things are coming. More eyes on more wrestling is good for the pro wrestling business. That was my takeaway. Would I have liked to see a proper straight down the middle pro wrestling match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega? Yeah. But you can't say it's not interesting going forward from here. Where does Impact Wrestling figure in the future of AEW? Tune in next week to find out. I've been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Thank you very much for watching this utter bollocks, and I'll see you next time.